What if the most powerful crop on Earth was something we deliberately forgot? There's a seed out there that packs more protein than beef. It thrives in brutal desert heat that would kill a cornfield within days. It asks for almost no water, and for 5 millennia, it quietly powered some of the most resilient civilizations on the planet, until we threw it away. Within a single century, industrial agriculture, colonial policy, and corporate logic combined to erase it from our fields. But here's the thing about a survivor. You can bury it, but you can't kill it. It just waits. This is the story of the teapery bean, and why it might be the most important crop you've never heard of. Genetic research published in 2021 traced the teapery bean's domestication to a single moment, roughly 5,000 years ago, deep in the Sonoran Desert. The people who cultivated it had no written alphabet, no agricultural universities, no soil labs. What they had was generations of lived observation. They understood something that modern science is only now catching up to. They chose this bean before grain, not out of tradition, but out of hard-won survival logic. The Tapari, Phaseolus acutifolius, is in a sense a biological marvel. Its genome evolved specifically for extremes. It produces specialized amino compounds that stabilize its proteins even at temperatures exceeding 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Its leaves fold closed during the day, opening only at night to conserve moisture. It pulls nitrogen from the air and deposits it into the soil, repairing damaged land as it grows. And it delivers up to 25 grams of protein per 100 grams of bean, more than beef, with a fraction of the environmental cost. The Tohono O'odham people called it Tepawi, simply the bean. But in their oral tradition, the Milky Way isn't stars. It's a scattering of white teapery beans across the night sky. That's how fundamental this crop was to their world. By 1,000 years ago, the Hohokam people had developed a farming method that sounds almost impossible. They planted tepery beans in dry riverbeds, then used brush structures to divert flash floods during monsoon season. 2 rains, 1 harvest. In regions receiving just 3 inches of rain annually, they still produced full yields. By the 1920s, Tohono O'odham farmers were growing 1.5 million pounds of tepery beans a year, trading them across a network stretching from Arizona to the Great Plains. And it wasn't just caloric survival. Before processed food arrived in their communities, the Tohono O'odham had virtually no type 2 diabetes. The Tapari's soluble fiber slowed digestion. Its low glycemic index kept blood sugar stable. Modern research would later confirm that it also contains compounds capable of inhibiting the growth of certain cancer cells. This wasn't food, it was medicine growing freely in the sand. The erasure didn't happen because the tepery bean failed. It happened because of ideology, twice over. The first blow came in the 16th century. Spanish missionaries moving through the Rio Grande corridor brought wheat, barley, and European cattle. They required native farmers to plant wheat for church tithes. The Tapari, wild and self-sufficient, required no European input and could not be controlled or owned. A Jesuit journal from 1694 described it as too wild to control. That phrase reveals everything. A plant that needed no irrigation, no imported seed, no dependency. It was a direct threat to the colonial economic model. Fields were replaced. Some were burned. The cruel irony, those European crops withered in drought years when the tepery would have kept entire communities fed. The second erasure came in the 20th century, dressed in the language of progress. Post-World War II industrialization transformed American farming. Tractors replaced hands. Monoculture replaced diversity. Federal subsidies flowed toward corn, soy, and cotton, crops that could be harvested by machine and fed to livestock at scale. The tepery was incompatible with this system. Its pods matured unevenly, had to be picked by hand, and shattered if you waited too long. A brilliant evolutionary trait for wild seed dispersal, but a disaster for mechanical harvest. In a world optimized for speed and uniformity, it had no commercial value. By the 1950s, a crop that had sustained desert civilization for 5,000 years had nearly vanished in 2 decades. A handful of families refused to let it disappear entirely. Seeds were tucked into clay jars and old trunks, handed down with quiet instructions. Preserved not because anyone thought they'd be economically valuable one day, but because they carried memory. When global droughts hammered yields in the 1970s, soybeans dropping, corn failing to pollinate in record heat, agricultural researchers began testing desert plants that were still thriving. What they found in the Arizona and Sonora borderlands surprised everyone. A small vine with white blossoms, growing strong at 115 degrees Fahrenheit. with almost no irrigation. It was the tepary bean. Soil tests after harvest showed nitrogen levels had actually increased. USDA researcher Gary Paul Nabon called it a gift from the past to the future. Compared to soybeans, it produced equivalent protein, resisted pests without chemical input, and used 1/3 the water. It wasn't a relic. It was a survivor designed for the exact conditions we were heading toward. But here's where the story gets quietly infuriating. Despite everything research confirmed, big agriculture wasn't interested. You can't patent a tepary bean. You can't engineer dependency into it. It doesn't need expensive fertilizer or proprietary seed contracts. It grows without you, and in a system built around selling inputs that made it invisible. Agricultural journals quietly labeled it unsuitable for commercial production, even as climate scientists were warning the world about what was coming. Profit beat survival. Again, around 1996, the Tohono O'odham Community Action Organization began the slow, patient work of collection. Elders were visited. Forgotten storage jars were opened. Ancient seed lines, while untouched for over 300 years, that were documented, tested, and returned to the ground. Farmers worked by hand, no chemicals, no machines, just desert soil and the knowledge passed through generations. They called it planting the ancestors. By the early 2000s, harvests were feeding local families, and small bags were appearing in school cafeterias. Children who had grown up on processed store food learned to plant, soak, and cook the same bean their great-grandparents had carried through dry seasons. The flavor, elders said, tasted like the desert itself. A food co-op formed. University partnerships produced data proving the tepary could grow on 75% less water than modern bean varieties. But beyond the food, something else was happening. Farmers said growing it felt like remembering who they were before everything changed. Climate. Models now suggest that more than 30% of global crop yields could decline by 2050 due to rising temperatures. The tepary bean has already lived through worse. It was born from heat. It sets pods at temperatures that kill competing crops. University trials in Arizona and Mexico confirmed what desert farmers had always known. Near equal protein to soy, 1/3 of the water demand, no synthetic inputs required. The International Center for Tropical Agriculture is now working on crossbreeding programs to transfer tepary heat and drought resistance into global food systems. Indigenous farmers see it differently than researchers do. For them, it's not a climate solution to be deployed. It's a relationship to be restored. As one elder put it, we grow it because it remembers how to live when everything else forgets. The tepary bean story isn't a simple triumph of rediscovery. The knowledge never actually disappeared, like it was ignored, held in memory by people who had every reason to give up but didn't. While billions are being spent searching for the next drought-resistant crop, the answer has been sitting in desert soil for 5,000 years, waiting for someone to stop looking past it. A plant that survived missions and mechanization and corporate indifference. A plant that heals the ground it grows in, feeds the people who tend it, and asks for almost nothing in return. Resilience growing in the sand. It just needed us to remember.